Okay. Out of order, Sylva's budget work session, March the 26th. Have an overview of budget process from manager.
Yes. So at this point in the process, the department heads have submitted their requests, and then everything is built into the budget and it's balanced. What we'll do today is go through the revenues and the expenditures, look at the board's priorities, and then from this point, you'll receive a draft budget April the 17th, and you have about roughly a week before our budget work session after the morning meeting in April to review it. And then following that, we advertise and do the public hearing the public hearing in May. So that May, the day of the morning meeting also has the public hearing that night. And then with the June adoption. So we're about half into the budget process at this point. And looking at the board goals, the yellow received 4 votes and the green received 3. This was emailed to you earlier, but just so you keep these goals in mind as we're looking at revenues and expenditures. So we start with the revenues. So this third column is so this, you have the papers here. So the third column is our budget right now, and then the current year. And then this first column of numbers is what we're looking at for this upcoming budget. So I just want to highlight a few. And so these 2 first pages are your summary sheets. And then this begins your line items. That's your detail. So as we go through the summary, I'm going to hit the highlights. And then feel free if you have questions while we're going through them, but look at the line items after the meeting and let us know and let me know what questions you have. So the first significant increase in here is when you see the taxes at the top, that the interest on investments, this change, that's due to the current interest rate. And I'm just going to hit the ones that are significant so that we can spend more time in the expenditures. But the Main Street program has a $3,205 increase. That's based off the proposed Main Street and Greening Up the Mountain budget. The sale of fixed assets is a negative $27,000. We have less equipment to sell in the upcoming budget because we'll only be surplusing the brush truck. Got some down here. These are your state revenues. This section is, all of them are based on current received, past trends, economic concerns, and what we're trying to project with the 107 project. PAL bill has a $4,000 increase. We received more in this. It's based off this current budget. We received $4,000 more. Second page, highlighting down here with general fund balance appropriation. There is not a fund balance appropriation proposed. And it's same thing with the rollover. And this right here is what was rolled over for the garbage truck in this current year. So you see your total revenue here, and this is without grants and proceeds. The grants and proceeds are in below the gray line, and then the total general fund budget's here. So basically, we have a lot of equipment, and we'll go into this more in the expenditures, but this is, you're looking at $410,000 less revenue. And then you see you've got your balance down here. So this number is, these are going to match the expenditures, and that's what gives you the balanced budget. So any questions on revenues before we dive into expenditures?
Increase in actual tax money coming in is virtually due to the county's reevaluation of everybody's homes, which they make it clear to everybody in town did not go up on taxes.
Correct. The rate remained the same. If there are differences in bills, it's because of the value.
Yeah.
The interest on investments,
Mhm.
does that go back into investments, or does that just go back into like the general fund?
So this is what we're projecting we will gain in revenue. So then that's going into the budget.
Of course, the projection on all that, I guess, is assuming everybody pays their taxes and it all comes in when it's supposed to on.
The tax revenue has an adjustment there for expected collections.
Yeah.
That's the only.
Yes, we can only budget what we collect.
Something that comes to light in my real world all the time, the fund that we put money into for future equipment, like a garbage truck that's $500,000 and things like that. In us putting money in there for the future next pieces of equipment, are we taking any consideration of the fact that how equipment prices have skyrocketed?
So we are taking that into consideration when we're budgeting for the equipment.
Okay.
That happens across the life expectancy. So when we buy a truck, we're already planning on the next truck 10 years from now.
Yeah.
And that's
I mean,
adjusted for the price of
A mini hose that used to be $15,000 is 35 now,
Mhm.
you know?
Other revenue questions? Okay. And please take these home with you, look at them and let us know what questions come to mind. So looking at expenditures. I think might make more sense to go through the bottom line here. So this is, the green is your total general fund budget. These are the numbers that match what you just saw in the revenues. Looking at general government right here, below the black line. And then that's your total expenditures, the first gray. Down here are your grants and proceeds. And then it all totals to this green down here. So this is your summary again, and these are your line items. And I want to point out on the line items that on this sheet, you're looking at these two columns. This one is the current budget. This is what is proposed for the upcoming budget. All right, so for mayor and board, there's a small increase in expenditures for liability insurance. Administration, there's a $40,455 difference. That's salary and benefits, added vacation payout, training, and IT. And this starts your administration breakdown of the line items. Highway patrol tax collection fees are the same. There is the Main Street difference. That's in just overall increases, Greening Up the Mountains, and then salary and benefits. And I want to point out that we have our presentation at 1 o'clock on the pay and classification plan. We have accounted for that in the budget, and also cost of living increase. So professional, there's a $19,000 increase. That is legal and audit. Police department. Salary and benefits, their $8,000 drone, that's coming out of capital reserve fund. Liability insurance, IT, the upgrade for the body cameras, for the AI translator, 2 vehicles, and that's the bulk of the change there. You can see that more in the detail as you're going through these sheets. And the labels for the departments are on the left-hand side. Flipping back and forth because I know that this is the first time a lot of you have seen it. Or have seen it in this format. Street department. An increase in auto maintenance along with salary and benefit and associated line items. PAL bill, that $4,000 is increased from the prior year. Street lights are the same. Planning, there's a $4,000 decrease. That is basically fewer inspections. That could probably pick up going into the 107 project, but based on the last few years, it's down a little bit. Sanitation department. Good.
Oh, sorry, I choked on my call.
So sanitation, there's a $242,373 decrease. That's the not purchasing a garbage truck in the upcoming budget. That's the difference in basically the cost of capital equipment. Facility maintenance, liability insurance increase. Non-departmental down here, this $18,000 decrease. That's, we did the pay study and we paid for the actual study in this budget. It'll be implemented in the 26-27 budget. There's also not a library contract budgeted, and the ABC grant program is transferring to help cover the cost of the community care social worker. Miscellaneous appropriations, that's additional tax and appeal allowance of $17,000. So your general government budget is below the black line, and expenditures are $52,000 less than the prior year. That's a very good indicator. Recreation has a $12,000 increase. That is upgraded IT and cameras, and then liability insurance increases. Separation allowance has a $20,000 increase, additional retirement. The fire department has a $390,605 decrease. That's the change in capital, and the first pumper truck was purchased. The second one is purchased with a loan from the town. So that's a 1-year payment rather than paying it all up front. Grant, coming down to grants and proceeds, this transfer from fire department capital reserves is a vehicle. The 2 pumper trucks are right here. And various changes in smaller state and federal grants. This $287,500 is a transfer from capital reserves that covers the brush truck for public works. That's $252,500, an $8,000 drone for the police department, a $5,000 trailer for the street department, and a $22,000 salt spreader. So the total general budget expenditure difference is $987,822. And the reason that looks so significant from the $52,000 decrease is the amount of capital that we're purchasing. So large equipment and projects are the biggest increases that are driving the budget. And projects like what we're contributing for the Scott Creek Wall. And there's just a heavy amount of equipment in this budget. So as you go through these and you're looking at the various expenditures, remember you're looking at these 2 columns here. And most of the gray ones total what is on this first summary sheet. In this column, if it doesn't total, the difference is likely that there is a transfer from capital reserves into it for equipment. What expenditure questions have you all got?
Thanks attributed to $52,000 increase in the general budget. Is there any one thing, or is it just several?
It is I think is combined throughout all of them. And capital. Like, for instance, Jake is getting a $22,000 salt spreader this year, but last year it was a much smaller piece of equipment.
Sorry.
Well,
like, unless I'm missing something, you can get a good chunk of that right in that sanitation department decrease,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's 240 something of the balance of 52.
Right.
Negative 52.
There, and I'm.
The sum of those plus and minuses is negative 52, but a lot of the minus is that 243.
right.
242.
Well, and you've got them in your bigger departments too.
So the bulk of the, I won't single anything out necessarily, but it's $1 million plus budget roughly, but the bulk of that is in 2 pumper trucks
And
and a garbage truck.
well, the brush truck this year.
The brush
last year.
Brush truck this year, yeah. I mean, I just think it would be important for the public to realize we didn't just increase the budget by $1 million for kind of arbitrarily across many lines or.
Right.
It's all service related.
Yeah.
Yes.
Money wasn't spent on steak and lobster.
This is the most equipment heavy budget I've seen the town have. But it was all on the capital sales.
Yeah.
We knew it was coming.
Going to speak to the point that Johnny was making, 10 years ago, we bought a garbage truck for $93,000. A larger truck than the one we just purchased.
And how much was this one?
237, I think.
Mike, why don't you hit on that with a,
Fire trucks,
yeah,
you know, your heart attack for a minute. Because the last one we bought was 364, 2014. It was, 495.
Just no color.
The one we just ordered, which is a lot less truck than that, it's a different cab truck, it's 540. And that truck, when we bought 64, we probably bought 2 of them. That's how much it went up since 2014.
That's the reason I was mentioning the amount of money we're putting into future equipment.
Yeah,
Needs to realize that the equipment prices are doubling and more.
yeah.
We're gonna wind up behind the 8 ball at the end if we don't recognize that.
And they're good for 20 years. Fire truck, that's what big. Then in fact, 20 years now, I buy 2 more.
Well, that's the reason you're seeing increases on auto maintenance lines too, so we can maintain these assets. Because we squeeze every drop of good we can get out of it.
So the selling of an old fire truck,
Too much for it.
you don't get much for it because fire departments can't use it no more than you can, right?
Now, you usually sell those to like the startup department, it's just trying to form. They just need a truck.
Yeah.
That's generally where they go. Won't give you a whole lot, so they don't have a whole lot to give. Somebody doing fundraising.
I can see contractors trying to turn one into a water truck.
And they did that too, this guy did that around here, he built a swimming pool for fire truck.
so the fire department gets 20 years out of a large truck. Public Works gets around 10 out of garbage truck and a brush truck. And then like police cars that are on patrol are on an 8-year rotation.
All of those are pretty aggressive. I mean, we see the result after 20 years on a fire truck. You've pushed it.
They're pretty usual.
Yeah, and same with a public works vehicle, and you're thinking, that's a lot of miles they put on those things, that they're not looking great by the end. It's not like you're haphazardly getting rid of them.
I'd say the thing gets most miles put on a police car.
Idle hours,
Yeah,
a lot more hours than miles.
yeah.
That's what's really hard on police cars.
It's like fire trucks, you look at the mileage, it'd be low. 12 to 15,000 miles on a 20-year-old truck. They don't count all the time sitting there pumping and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Motors running, revved up all the time, and that's what wires them out. Plus we start from cold and
You gotta go.
take
No
off.
time to warm them up.
Can't wait, so.
You know, I'm not suggesting to try to budget for something like this year or maybe even next, but it might be something worth considering. If Jake saw a need for it, I know we ran into a salt crisis this winter. And there had to be some strings pulled and emails sent and everything else for us to even get any salt to supply for our citizens in downtown Sylva. We made a deal years ago, long before I was here, that Jake pretty much pushes off state roads to city limits in exchange for the salt we get for our city streets, which is a pretty good deal for the state, for manpower and everything else as well. Takes care of our citizens and it serves everybody well. When there winds up with a crisis, we want to consider building a shed somewhere and trying to store a little bit of salt of our own when we can get it and put it there for our own access in the middle of the night when Jake might need it, when you got to get an ambulance to somebody's house or something in icy weather. We want to consider trying to, for emergency status, having a little salt on hand for us. If the DOT gates are not open in the middle of the night.
I think that's probably a discussion for 27, 28. We're gonna bring that up because we're way past, that ship sailed for this
Oh,
budget.
yeah.
And if I'm speaking out of turn, Paige, please stop me, but I
I'm
think
not talking about doing it this year or
Yeah.
even next, but I'm just saying it's something that I wondered if you wanted to consider or not.
it's not something worth not considering.
I think that'd be a hard sell to the taxpayers for as few snows as we get. I mean, I think you could look at other arrangements, just keeping some salt on hand, but you're looking at property and a shed and
You can't leave it out with.
Okay, and a shed would be a huge expense, and I don't know where we put it right off the top of my head.
you
I
know,
think-
you have to buy property and build it.
Mhm.
I think exploring other arrangements, the partnership with the DOT, of course, is critical.
Yeah, and it works flawlessly right up until it doesn't.
Yeah.
Until it's resolved.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, what other questions or comments on the expenditures? And I know that you all will have them as you go through and look at it. Anything? Okay, so as far as so it's balanced, there's a lot of equipment. We've got the Ritz parking lot in a separate project, with grant funding. Board priorities, I think was, let's go to the crosswalk discussion. Or you want to, and what I'd like to do is, I wanted Jake in the police department, but you can cover the history of what the town has done safety wise over the last few years. And then we can address upcoming options.
Yeah, a brief history of pedestrian safety here in town. We've had, so Main Street and Mill Street are state DOT roads. Spring, Landis, Schulman, those are town roads at the intersection of both of those kind of arterial state roads. The DOT put a crosswalk in. You want this to be innovation specific, Paige, or?
Just overall. And then going back, sorry to interrupt.
No.
But going back to 2014, we were looking at trying to maximize the parking and slow traffic down. So when we had the fire downtown, the traffic route that we shifted to actually improved businesses like the slower traffic and more parking with the diagonal spaces on Mill Street. So we ended up basically making one lane on Main Street, a turning lane, and then closing the left lane to travel on Mill to make it a one travel lane with diagonal parking. That slowed traffic a lot. That made crosswalks a lot more important.
And created some congestion. With cars backing out, stopping traffic. I mean, it's a trade-off.
Right.
But it's part of the equation.
Yes.
Yeah, the biggest thing you can do to increase pedestrian safety is slow people down, pretty much full stop. The bump outs were added, and that was 2014 too, wasn't it, Paige?
I don't remember offhand.
You say bump out before you talk.
Those are the brick, so as you travel down Main Street at each intersection, you've got the brick hardscape style bulb out looking deals that it gives pedestrians. It's not much of a protective layer, but it is something to give a buffer between oncoming traffic and folks waiting to cross.
So some of those were done in the streetscape, but we extended the one farther down Main Street when we moved the crosswalk to the other side of Evelina.
Right.
And that was to to give the visual cue that it would be before the street intersection instead of after it. Then on Mill Street, we made a larger bump out in front of Back Street Takeout to get to that crosswalk.
We also added a flashing push button beacon coming over from Bridge Park further down,
Yeah.
closer to Lulu's.
How expensive are those things?
About 30,000 right now. And solar options are, I've been talking to Steve Cannon quite a bit about this here lately. In specific to innovation, it would have to be solar, because it would take a directional bore to get power underground. On both sides right there.
Is that something we want to make an official request to the DOT to do with innovation?
Well, I think that's why we'd like to have this discussion. That request has been made, been getting sent a letter to all you guys, as well as Paige and myself. After this most recent pedestrian conflict, been 2 pedestrian conflicts at that specific intersection in the last couple of years. Immediately, what we've done is freshen up the thermoplastic that just happened yesterday in the cross. And that's a molten polymer. It looks like paint, but it's actually plastic stuck down to the road. And it's got reflective beads in it, as well as they call them alligator teeth, but it's just a series of triangles to delineate that, hey, there is a crosswalk coming up here shortly. Additionally, about 5 years ago, we installed flashing LED beacon crosswalks. They're not a push button. They flash all the time. I'm sure you've seen them. There's one closer up towards Howard Allman's building in the eastbound lane, and there's one back just coming across the bridge in the westbound lane. So we have those, and we did have the little 4-foot knee signs indicating a pedestrian crosswalk. Those fell victim to snow plows. And this last snow, they won't tolerate that. And people also run over them and jack with them and stuff like that. So they're $500 or $600 a piece, and they don't last very long, and they're ugly. And I'm not real sure how much safety they add to that. There's certainly a diminished return. The knee-jerk reaction is say, hey, let's throw up signs, let's throw up flashing beacons. The DOT takes pause at stuff like that. And again, if we were to decide, hey, we need a push button beacon at the innovation crosswalk, we need, the state's permission to do that, and they would require us to pay for it. We have an existing encroachment agreement right there for signage currently, but we would need a new one to install anything different. And if y'all didn't hear Johnny's question, those are running about $30,000 right now, and we would be. So they would just, DOT would consider that a betterment and above and beyond their minimum standard. So that would be at the town's expense. There is such a thing as sign pollution. I think you can really busy up an area with signage to the point where it actually pulls the driver's focus from the travel lane to try to read the 17 signs that they've got adjacent to a given crosswalk. I'm not taking a stance one way or another currently about whether we need additional measures at that specific intersection or not. These are all just considerations. I think the root of the problem is we have distracted drivers and we have distracted pedestrians. I'll quote Chief Hatton, "You're not going to run over me in a crosswalk because I'm not going to be standing in one not paying attention." But it's clearly an issue because we've had several conflicts across the last span of 10 years or so. Pretty drastic measures have been made to increase pedestrian safety in town since the pedestrian plan. And as a result of that, it's worth a discussion. I don't know that additional signage or flashing beacons really get us where we're trying to get. It's a fluid situation with a lot of nuance.
So if you had a recommendation for a short-term fix and a long-term fix, what would they be?
I'm still waiting to hear back. Steve, the DOT is going to make a safety recommendation right there based on their standards. And because it is their road, we kind of have to follow their lead on it. We can make all the requests we want to, but I'm waiting to hear an analysis from a trained traffic engineer, see what their input about it is. a budget is a reflection of values, and if this board values pedestrian safety, it would definitely be something to throw some money at.
Do you know how many pedestrians have been hit and how do we compare to other, small towns?
So I can only speak to it since I've been here. The 8 years is coming August. We've had 3 pedestrian conflicts, 2 at that intersection at Innovation and 1 at Schulman and Main right there at Fusion Spot. Yeah.
That one was at a signalized crosswalk in the middle of the day. And the request we made after that was to have a 3-second delay between the traffic before the light caught the next.
That's real. It really.
Yeah.
Change.
When people get to the end of town, before you get to innovations, they pretty much think they're through the historic district, and if you'll just, traffic just tends to speed up a little bit right there.
Well, a significant distinction between the Innovation crosswalk and the ones on Main Street proper is that the ones on Main Street proper have red lights and signals telling people what the hands say and go, or the walking man say, it's not feasible to have a red light at the Innovation crosswalk. So, and statistically, non-signalized crosswalks have much more pedestrian conflict than signalized crosswalks. I mean, the logic tracks there.
Where does the historic district start and stop?
Age.
So the National Register District starts at Fusion Spa and goes until on Main Street, and then goes until the Ritz lot. And on Mill Street, it includes Jackson's General and then goes back to so the opposite side of Mill Street would include the Ward Plumbing building. But the left side is the same as Main, so back to Fusions.
We have a right to increase the historic district.
No.
Huh?
Because that's the National Register District that's based off of the standards that was approved. So they picked it based off what buildings qualified and contributed.
They designated, not us.
I hadn't thought that if we could make the historic district and sort of try to make a theme for our town, we walk in town, and slowing down, it's not a place to run through, it's a place to walk through. And said maybe from the coffee shop bridge to the fountain, period.
You don't necessarily need a historic district to achieve
Right.
that if you want to do.
That's just based off the building and the age and the.
You want to designate, try to communicate that it's a walking community and potential, in my mind, for some signage or something there. If that was proven to be an effective method to slow people down and get them to think more about pedestrians.
Yeah.
That's the kind of recommendation that would come from the DOT on what do you expect from them on that? I mean,
I don't expect them to make, without approval from us, an agreement, or without a request from us and without agreement to pay for it. I don't expect the DOT to do anything.
I don't mean what would they
Already
do,
done.
sorry, what might they recommend? So it seems like we're leaning into them for the study
Mhm.
and which may make sense, but that's what they do is traffic studies and determine are they gonna be advising us on, we're talking about what's happened there, are they gonna be advising us on the design of that area and say, based on what we've seen elsewhere and what's happening, we might recommend this without regard to the cost, but it would be nice to know what's recommended, because it sounds like we're kind of, maybe some signs, maybe some.
Any decision making that the DOT makes in regards to that specific, any crosswalk, but specifically that one at Innovation is going to be a lot more data driven. They're going to want traffic counts, they're going to want pedestrian counts, which are traffic counts are easy to get. And traffic counters are much more reliable than pedestrian counters. I mean, without having.
Someone's got a count, yeah.
There.
Yeah.
That's hard data to get. They're going to look at conflicts across a given amount of time. They're gonna look at distances between crosswalks, distances from the signage to stop distances. There's they've got an 8-inch safety manual full of standards that they adhere to, and anything, so when the DOT has met their standard, they say, all right, it's good. And anything above that standard would have to come at our request and our
expense.
And our expense, exactly.
It's a unique area
Mm-hmm.
right through there. It's probably not gonna match. In my mind, it's not gonna match their data.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's not another place where
Mm-hmm.
that I can think of around here where that road is being used as a thoroughfare. I mean, most of the traffic on there is not people coming to shopping downtown. It's people trying to get from Tullabee to Dillsboro or whatever the case may
I think
be.
one of the issues is just like John was saying, it's like when you're right when you pass Ilda and you've got innovate, like people are already speeding up, and the same with coming from the other direction across the bridge.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, well, I'm not on Main Street
No longer
until
on Main
I'm
Street.
actually hitting these buildings. And so right there, I stood out there the other day after the incident, and I was like, they're going at least
speeding
10.
up.
Yeah, they're speeding up
Mhm.
until they get to Ilda, and then they're like, oh, now there's buildings on both sides.
Yes.
Yeah, I was just trying to get us to think about a way for people and pedestrians to consider the area to drive slow through doesn't end where the two streets come together. Let it end at the
Bridge.
bridge, if we made it a theme somehow that this is a walking place and go slow through this area too, just like Main Street.
Those two accidents at that intersection though were people coming towards downtown. And I totally agree about the speeding up after them, but the conflict is coming in, and that
It's
is
coming in because I think, the nearest speed limit sign is almost across from Valero, and that's
I think maybe the other side of the bridge
Mm-hmm.
had
the ones.
one at one time.
Yeah. But I think it's pushed. Yeah, but I think it's a little bit farther back now, and people are like, oh, well, but once they're going across that bridge, like it's still 35 or 30 miles an hour. I
Something
think.
else we'd probably want to consider is the fact that any kind of extra signage or putting them little things out on the white lines and all that stuff. We're approaching a 5-year period of time when we're gonna see more dump truck traffic right down Main Street and Back Street than we've ever seen before. That's the only path from where they're working to the quarry.
One potential kind of low cost, because I've worked in highway safety before, is just parking a patrol vehicle with periodic someone sitting inside it, not all the time, but just parking it there has a calming effect on the traffic.
Right.
And then once a week or every so often having someone actually be in the vehicle, it slows down
Highway Patrol has 2 or 3 of those cars they've got solar panels on the back of them, and at DOT's request, they'll park them somewhere and they'll turn the blue light on and leave it going with solar power. DOT borrows them, moves them around all the time.
The ones that work on me are the ones that tell you how fast you're going.
Mhm.
That's the ones that are most effective on me. I slow down for those. I just think they're noticeable.
Yeah.
Like the one in Webster, that thing works.
Yes.
I gets me down between 25 and 30 over and over. Cause it's a similar situation in that on either side of it, that's not on your mind. And then all of a sudden you're in this area where you need to be much more cautious and that works. I know we've had one on Mill Street before.
Yeah, we move them all over the place.
Is there an opportunity to put one in coming toward that, before that, maybe just this side of the bridge?
We would probably the reason there hasn't been one there yet, we had one across the road that got torn down by a ladder rack.
Yeah.
There isn't a good post on the right-hand side of the road, on the incoming side. Drivers normally pay much less attention to the opposite side of the road than they do the side they're traveling on. It would need to be on a standalone post, which is not impossible, but there isn't an existing. We'd like to put them on a power pole because we can get them up high enough to be out.
It's hard to hit them. Yeah.
Yeah. it certainly isn't out of the equation for sure. We'll figure something out.
Are those generally cheaper than the flashing lights? I mean.
They're not as cheap as they should be.
Cheaper than the
They sure don't
30,000.
hold up very well to impact.
Right.
But yeah, they can be had for less than $5,000 generally. And the PD already has a few.
Okay.
That seems like low hanging fruit to me.
Yeah.
Those do
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In my observation, they get people slowed down and I don't know, I know they're usually just, here's your speed, flashing red if you're above it. Are there slightly bigger ones that have a message as well? That's the ones we have, right? Are the ones with the message board?
Yeah, it hadn't. I hadn't programmed them to say all kinds of whimsical things, but.
Yeah, no, but in this case, like slow down pedestrian area type message.
Mhm.
The bridge.
That's just what I was fixing to mention. Is everybody saying the archway that's put in the town of Waynesville?
Yes.
That'd be a perfect place for something like that. It'd draw people's attention, it'd slow them down. You could put.
Yeah, except for that one's really attractive and what we're talking about would not. Here's our
I mean, it might
beautiful
be-
arch that says slow down.
It might be something worth paying for if it served more than one purpose than being pretty, you know.
Well, here's another option. Go ahead, Perry. I didn't mean to-
Right here on the bridge, there is a post that does have a pedestrian sign, but I still feel like, I mean, that's a good 120 feet away from the
Mhm.
crosswalk itself. And people are so beeline just getting over the bridge, you're not, I mean, I had to like walk and be like, oh, well, there it is. Cause I was like, why isn't there one on this side? And then I had to, walk down to the gas station in the back and I was like, okay, I see it. But like putting that flasher maybe there,
Mhm.
cause it's right as you're, it's just at the end of the bridge coming onto Main Street.
So we also have our little blue signboard that you see popping up all over the place. It's radar equipped and it will do that same thing. So if we park it in the wide spot across from the coffee shop, I think.
That's where I'm talking
temporarily-
about.
Yeah, I think temporarily that's probably.
Where there's currently almost like
Mhm.
a bulb out there where that little building used to be that hung out over the creek.
Yeah.
That seems like where it starts getting wider there, that seems like
Mhm.
where I'm seeing it, that's the spot. Like, if we're gonna get the message, this is when we need you to start slowing down.
Mhm.
That's the area right there.
You're talking about the old tire shop.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause that, you're right then approaching where we're having the incidents and it's.
And we can't use that permanently there, but certainly in the short term, I mean, because we use it for events and road closures and work zones and stuff like that. But in the short time, I mean, I can have that thing out there by the end of the day. If that's the board direction.
If you can, I mean, I'm with it. That seems like the spot.
Trying.
Yes.
Yeah.
Short terms.
Yeah.
You don't need a vote for that, do you?
We can't take a vote in a work session anyway, but y'all can direct, so that's.
I've also heard there's pretty bad wash on this side of the bridge at Innovations. Off in there, I'm assuming that's something that'll get addressed with the bridge restoration.
Are you talking about that caved in basement for that? Yeah, I don't know why they're not more concerned with that. I'm assuming it'll be addressed when 107 gets kicked off.
That thing is gonna go in.
I
I've
have
been
fussed
slowly
and
watching
fussed and
it.
fussed about that.
Yeah.
So they put up some water barricades around it, but that's the only action that's been taken.
Yeah, cause that's where,
Future plan,
acre track.
will you like that?
I sure would not, but they certainly don't seem to have a short-term plan for it either. 'Cause it's a pedestrian and environmental hazard.
So I got an invite to one day at my convenience with, Kenny McCord, who's gonna be running that project. I'm thinking it might be beneficial for me and you to take a ride to this whole project with him and talk about issues that have come up here and yonder and what they can and can't do.
Paige and I had a meeting with Kenny last week. I think it was productive.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd be happy to do that.
I think it helps you ride around and look at things more than you can see in the boardroom.
So we'll try those safety measures for crosswalks and hopefully get.
Which is the high vis stuff we already did and adding the signboard.
I'd love.
Short of being out there waving
waiting.
at people, the signboards, it seems to me about, I mean, just to reiterate that I would think that would be something that's proven effective.
Well, yeah, as they come out of downtown, they're like, all right, I got places to be and we'll hammer it. Then all of a sudden you have this wayward crosswalk right there at Innovation. And then as they come into town on the westbound side, they haven't really gotten far
Right.
enough in yet, so
To
I got
realize,
to come down.
yeah.
So we're gonna give them a little.
Advance notice.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, we had one of those you're going too fast signs on, way in the middle of Back Street before you get to Ward's.
It was in our, it was in our, it was in the.
And then people would get used to, this is where I gotta slow down instead of back.
Yeah,
Before
I think that same thing earlier might be the ticket.
Yeah, I think there's something to moving them around too.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you're supposed to be going slow here as well.
Other budget items that need to be discussed? Not, this is what you will see as the draft, that we'll probably find changes. Right, you want to get a motion to recess until 1?
Yes.
We have that motion to go into recess till 1 o'clock. Motion. We have a motion, any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Thank
Stand
you.
in recess.
I just do adjourn, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Respect. Congratulations, official adjournment.